Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream. So I'm Lar from Complete Test Success. Today we're looking at IELTS Writing Task 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a question with you, and then together we will write the essay together. So I'll just be walking you through the process of writing the essay, but I'll also be giving you feedback on, the ideas and the writing that you submit to me. So if I find any problems, I'll be able to tell you what your problems are. And that goes a long way towards helping you improve your scores, because if you don't know what your problems are, like, how can you fix them? So a big part of improving your scores is knowing what you're doing wrong and then taking action on fixing those problems. So yeah, we're going to write an essay together today. So today we're looking at this question here. So this is IELTS Writing Task 2. The question says, some people believe that the increasing number of cars is the biggest problem cities face today, while others think there are more serious issues affecting urban areas. Discuss both views and give your own ideas. Okay, so I'm going to plan the essay. I'm going to plan the essay with you guys here first today. So normally what happens is I just write the essay straight off the bat. But what I'd like to do with you today is a little bit different. I'd just like to make sure that you plan your essays. I always teach my students to plan their essays. It's very, very important that you plan your essays so that you can find the issues with your ideas and the issues with your development more easily. So that's what I want to start with. We're going to plan the essay together. Now, for this question, we need 3 ideas. We need an idea for the first view. We need an idea for the second view, and we need an idea for our opinion. So we're going to have 3 ideas. Our opinion will basically be, I agree with the first view. So it'll be another reason for why people have the first view, or I agree with the second view, whichever one's easiest. So if we come up with 2 ideas for the first view first, then I will say that my opinion is the first view is correct. Or if we come up with 2 ideas for the second view first, we'll just say that that's our opinion. So that's my first task for you guys here today. Can you tell me what ideas can we use for this question? And you can just type it into the comments. Obviously, the biggest things that we're looking out for are your ideas relevant and are your ideas specific? So those are essentially the 2 biggest mistakes that you can make when it comes to your ideas. Is you're writing an idea, or you're using an idea that's not actually related to what the question asked you to talk about. So that's the first problem we need to check for. And then the second one is that your ideas would be too vague. So vague ideas would be something, just essentially it's not specific. So something like there are other issues. It was like, what issues are we talking about? Or let's say, for example, the increasing number of cars is the biggest problem because it's terrible. It's like, well, why is it terrible? We need to know more specifically what is the reason for it being bad, not just saying that it's bad more generally. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for you guys to do. Share your ideas in the comments, and then I'll be able to tell you if you're making any mistakes. So we're just going to start with that. What ideas can we use? Okay, so we're at a different time today, so I'm not sure how many people will participate. If no one's going to participate, that's no problem. And what I'll do is I'll just walk you through the process that I would follow when I'm writing an essay. I have to write lots of essays for the various work that I do, be it providing sample answers for students or for creating content for various schools. Okay. Hi. So high traffic can lead to unnecessary delays in day-to-day commute. Okay. So that would be our first idea. So it's the biggest problem. So it's the biggest problem because it results in unnecessary delays. Okay. So let's add that. All right. So what other ideas can we use? We need one more idea for the second view. So why it's not the biggest problem. And we need another idea then for either side. Now, where the second view, where people will often go wrong with this type of question, where it says, this is the biggest problem, other people think it's not the biggest problem. So what I often see when people are trying to think of the second view, an idea for the second view, what they do then is they try to say, what is another big problem? But that's not enough. It's not what is another big problem. You can either tell me why another problem is bigger than the increasing number of cars, or you can tell me why is the increasing number of cars not the biggest problem. So either way, but it has to address the fact that the increasing number of cars isn't the biggest, not just what is another big problem, but another big problem that shows the increasing number of cars isn't the biggest one. Decline of green spaces. Okay, that works perfectly. Hayot Beck, that one is perfect. So let me see, how did you phrase that? Decline of green spaces. Let's say decrease in green spaces. Okay. So we need one other idea, and it can be from either side. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about view 1 or view 2. Hi, Stan. Good to see you here. Long time no here. Inadequate number of affordable housing is bigger than increasing cars. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do then is we'll just put in that V2, just to remind me that this opinion is I'm going to support the second one, the second view. And you said the inadequate affordable housing. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we have our ideas, and every idea that I've been provided with is perfect because they're all relevant and they're all specific. So we have exactly what we need. None of these are vague. None of these are irrelevant. So once we're happy with our ideas, what we need to do next is we need to decide how we're going to develop them. So let's just work together on the first one. How can we develop the first idea? Unnecessary delays. So how can we develop that first? And we'll look at the other ones later. So we're just going to plan the essay here first. And after that, then we can write it out in full. And I would strongly recommend that you write essays in this way. When you plan the essay first, and you know what you want to say before you write the essay, and you know that everything you're going to say is suitable, what you'll find is it's much easier to get a high task response score. And also then when you're writing the essay, you'll find it's much faster because you already know what you want to talk about. Soar in living expenses. Yes, that would have been perfect for the second view. We have enough ideas already, but yeah, that one is perfect. Increased air pollution. Yeah, again, that one would be suitable. So all of those ideas, again, are relevant and specific, just that we don't need any more ideas at the moment. So what are we going to say about unnecessary delays? How are we going to develop that particular idea? That's the next task. Okay, so just wait for another few seconds. If I don't get any ideas about how to develop that first idea, if I don't get any responses about how to develop that first idea, I'll just push forward with my own thoughts on that. And when you're in the IELTS test, you would ideally be planning your essay in about 5 minutes. Just so that you have enough time to write your essay and check for mistakes once you're finished. So it is very important to get the plan done quite quickly. If you're new to writing plans, though, I wouldn't worry about getting it done in 5 minutes. You know, if you've never really thought of ideas in this way about are they vague or are they specific, are they relevant or are they irrelevant, and planning it out, it takes some time to begin with. But once you get used to it, you would hopefully be able to do it within about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm not getting anything there from anyone, so let me just jump in. So I would say, you know, like more traffic jams, and then let's say something like, you know, worse mental health. So that would be the result. People have to spend more time in their cars and in traffic and stuff like that. Okay. So let's move on to the second idea. What we need next is how can we develop the second idea? Okay. Okay, so when you're ready, just type into the comments that second idea, decrease in green spaces. Now, remember, we need to say why that's worse than the increasing number of cars. Not just what does that mean, or, you know, why is it bad, but it's specifically why is it worse than the increasing number of cars. So don't forget that we can't just write about our idea outside the context of the question. We have to remember we're talking about what the question asked us to talk about. So if we go off topic and just say, like, you know, decreasing green spaces is not good for people and we need it for this and we need it for that. Well, yeah, fair enough. But how is that related to the decrease in green spaces being worse or a bigger problem than the increasing number of cars? So make sure that we keep it in the context of the question. So it says wasted time could have been used for other areas such as house chores. Yeah, it's quite a specific thing to say it could have been used for house chores. Like it could be used, the time that's lost could have been used for anything. You know, it could be just for sitting down and relaxing. It could be used for watching TV. Could be used for house chores. Could be used for studying. It doesn't really matter. So try to stay with something that would apply to, you know, more people, rather than just thinking of one thing you could do if you had more time. Development of new roads. So that would have to be a solution. We're not being asked for a solution at the moment. So that wouldn't be relevant. So there would be some questions where you're saying, like, you know, why is this happening? And what are the possible solutions? And in that case, yes, the development of new roads would be suitable. But there's nothing in this question asking us to come up with, you know, solutions to the problem. So that would be unsuitable. The decline in green spaces leads to air pollution. Okay. And the increasing number of cars would also increase the air pollution. So why is this air pollution worse than the air pollution from the cars? I want something more directly linked to what makes it worse than the increasing number of cars. So this might be right. We might be able to use this, but I just need to see how is it connected to what the question has asked us to discuss at the moment. Insufficient green spaces go hand in hand with sedentary lifestyles, which can negatively impact both physical and mental health of the people. Okay, that makes sense. So let's add that. You said results in sedentary lifestyles and then that results in worse mental and physical health. PHYSICAL. Okay, and that makes sense as well. So we were saying that the traffic jams are worse for your mental health, but the decrease in green spaces is worse for your mental health and your physical health. So that's why it's worse. It's not just your mental health, it's your mental and your physical health. So that makes sense. We are showing about why it is worse for both. I'm just going to have to decrease the size of this for a moment. And then we're on to our last idea, inadequate affordable housing. How are we going to develop that idea? Okay, so again, that's my next task for you. How can we develop the third idea? Okay, so good work so far from everyone. Really good. We're now on that third idea, inadequate affordable housing. How is that worse than the increasing number of cars? Less CO2 filters. I'm not sure what you're referring to here, Ty. I'm not sure which of the ideas you're referring to. So I'm not saying it's irrelevant. I just don't understand how it would fit into the essay. So I can't really comment on that. Hi, Ariel. So you're talking about air pollution. Yeah, we could talk about air pollution for sure. But again, are you talking about the first idea or the second idea? And we already had, Stan was saying that a decrease in green spaces leads to more air pollution, which is true. But again, what's the connection between that and the fact that it makes the decrease in green spaces a bigger issue than the increasing number of cars? So again, we just need to make sure it's really, really clear how those things are connected, or else we cannot use them in our essay. It's not going to get us the highest score possible. And again, this is why we want to plan the essay first. It's much, much easier to see these problems when we lay it out in a plan compared to if we just write the essay without a plan. And what happens then is the first idea that comes into our head goes straight onto the page, and it's much harder to recognize whether it's acceptable or unacceptable. Inadequate affordable housing leading to more homeless people. Okay. More homeless people, good. And then what would the result of that be? How can we go one bit further with that just to make sure we have enough development? Because we need 3 ideas for this essay. What that means is we're going to have to write about 70 words for each idea. So if we just leave it at that much, it might end up that we don't have enough to say so that we reach that, 70 word, wouldn't be a limit, but requirement to say, to make sure that we're getting as high a task response score as possible. Because if you have a little bit of development, that can bring you to a 7, but like, why not aim higher? So we're going to try and get a bit more in there before we finish the plan. Tanvir, living in rural area would make it more affordable. Yes, I mean, that again, that is true, but that's not relevant because we haven't been asked for solutions. We just need to say about why it is the biggest problem or why it's not the biggest problem, not how would we solve the problem. So that, although what you're saying is true, it's just not a suitable piece of information to put into the essay. So that's what we mean by irrelevant, in that, yes, you're talking about the topic, but you're not answering the question that they asked you to talk about. And very often when we see irrelevant ideas, that's why they're irrelevant. There's a difference between talking about the topic and answering the question. Thai, worse mental and physical well-being, increase in crime rates. More homeless people, increase in crime rates. Yeah, I think that might be true. Extortionate housing leaves people unhoused and it can threaten the cleanliness and image of the city. Okay, let's go with increase in crime rates. I think it's a bit less complicated. What you've said is perfect though. So like this is suitable, but I'm going to go with the easier option, increase in crime rates, which I don't think is always necessarily the case. Doesn't mean that someone's homeless means they're going to commit crime, but it does logically follow from one to the next. All right, so that's a full plan. Now, with this plan that we've just written, we are now capable of getting a band 8 or 9 for task response. Everything that we need for our task response score is there. So now when we go to write the essay, all we're thinking about is the coherence and cohesion, the vocab, the grammar. How are we going to structure it? What information needs to go in each part of the essay? So this is going to make things a lot easier. And what you'll find is we'll be able to write it a lot faster now that we've made this decision. Okay, so sorry, let me get my camera or my screen set up properly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write the introduction. So the introduction basically means we need to paraphrase this part of the question here. So if this is what the question says, how can we paraphrase that question? So that's my next task for you guys. Write the paraphrase for that question, share it with me in the comments, and I'll just copy and paste one of your attempts and I'll add it to the document. Just in case any of you aren't aware, to paraphrase the question means to rewrite that sentence that's on the screen now, rewrite that in your own words. Where students most often go wrong is they try to change every word, or they try to use words that they wouldn't normally use, and they push themselves too far. And then either what they've written is unclear, or what they've written doesn't have the same meaning as the original sentence. So what I'd recommend is just change the words that you can change and you're confident that you're changing correctly. And then for the words that you can't change, just copy them. So basically you're going to copy the words that you can't change the ones you can, copy the ones you can't, and just make sure that the meaning is the same and that it's clear. Those are the main goals. And then changing as much words, as much of the vocab as you can, kind of comes after that. Okay, so I have the first paraphrase in from Thai. Many say that the most pressing issue these days is the increase in car ownership. Right. And it's not just the most pressing issue, but the most pressing issue that cities face. Okay, so we can take that as the first half. We still need to paraphrase the second half, but yep, that's definitely a good place to begin. So let me just add that to the document here. So many say that the most pressing issue in cities these days is the increase in car ownership. And now we need to have the other side. Whereas, and then we can write down the a paraphrase for the second part, the second view. So we're halfway there in the paraphrase. Okay, Ariel. Some people think that the biggest problem not just in cities, not in their cities, in cities, because it's in general, not specific cities, is the growth of cars, the growth of maybe vehicle numbers, not necessarily the growth of cars themselves, but the number of cars, while others believe that there are more serious problems that must be solved. There are more serious problems. Yeah, that works. Let's take the second half of that and I'll add that to the screen here. Do you know what? And I'm going to take out that must be solved part, because it didn't, I mean, it's not that you're wrong, but the question didn't say it. Obviously, you know, if there's an issue, they must feel that it needs to be solved. But I just want to have the exact same meaning as the question. So you're not wrong, but I want to just keep it the same. Okay, now we have written the paraphrase. Now, what I would normally do is I would get students to write down what main ideas we're going to use in the introduction. But what I found is that for this question type, discuss both views and give your own opinion. If we come back and we start saying, you know, the reason that people think that cars, the increasing number of cars is the biggest problem is that they think it causes unnecessary delays, while and then we go the other side and then we include ours. It's kind of cumbersome when we start to include the ideas in our introduction for this question type. We have to kind of repeat the views and we have to put in the main ideas. It becomes quite long. So what I think is nearly a better approach at this point is just to say, outline what the essay is about. So like this essay will discuss both views, although it is my opinion that there are other more significant issues, something like that. Okay, so that then, there are other more significant issues, excuse me. All right, so that then is our introduction done, and we get to move on to the body paragraphs, okay? So I'm going to do it because it's important that we can still see the question while we're writing. So here's what I'm going to do. I want us to write body paragraph 1 about the unnecessary delays. So let me just change the instructions there. Okay, so this is my next task for you guys. I want you to write the first body paragraph. It's going to be somewhere about 70 words. So just write up what you can of that paragraph, share it with me. I'll give you feedback on any vocab or grammar mistakes you're making, and I'll take somebody's writing, add it to the screen, and we'll build up that body paragraph together. So it is believed that the growing number of cars seems to be the most pressing issue cities face today. Not rather than it seems, because it seems means it looks like that rather than it is. So we just say it is the most pressing issue cities face today. Good. Whereas others assume there's more than that. Well, that doesn't have the same meaning. So it'd have to be others assume that there are more pressing issues than that. Tanvir, others believe that urban people face highly numbers of issue growing cars. So this is what I was talking about earlier, is when you try to change too many words, sometimes it becomes unclear. So others believe that urban people face highly numbers of issues. So it'll be bigger issues. So others believe that urban people face bigger issues than the growing number of cars. So for you, it seems like vocab is going to be something that you need to work on. And there are two kind of key problems with vocab. One is that some people don't have enough vocab to communicate their ideas, and they need to obviously study vocab and improve their range, and just spend a long time studying vocab to have enough vocab to say what they want to say clearly. But another issue then is people trying to use vocab, push themselves to use vocab that they're not comfortable using. And then as a consequence, they're going to end up with, unclear writing. And for those students, the solution is to actually just use easier vocab, and it will become clear as a result. Rich, $20. Thank you for a great lesson. Rich, you're very, very good. Rich donated to me last week and again this week. Rich, you're unbelievable. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. You're very good. I'm shocked. I was shocked last week, but wow, really wasn't expecting that. Rich, you're very good. Thank you so much. Thai, whereas others claim there are severe urban problems that require our concern more. Yes. I would say put the more before severe. Just say, whereas others claim there are more severe urban problems that require our concern. The more would be better before severe. Thank you too, Rich. You're a legend. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are on to the first body paragraph. I realize it's a bit longer, so it's taking you a while to put that together. So, yeah, if you even have a few sentences written, just pass it through and I'll start going through them. I have one from Stan. Stan, the increasing of car ownership, the increase in car ownership. The increase in car ownership has become problematic for cities as it leads to more traffic congestion. Yeah, perfect. So that is a perfect first sentence for our paragraph, because it's repeating what the idea is about, and that's exactly what the idea is, and that's exactly what we need to do. So the increase in car ownership, we just need to change that bit, has become problematic for cities as it leads to more traffic congestion. Okay, ideal. Okay, so what are we going to say next? After this, we need to talk about oh no, it was unnecessary delays was our main idea. So you've jumped straight into what was going to be the development. So the increase in car ownership has become problematic for cities. Problematic for cities as it leads to unnecessary delays. Yeah. So we're going to follow the plan. And this happens to a lot of students as well, as like, they had the plan, they decided what they were going to say, but then when they start writing it, they change what they were planning. So what they had planned to say and what they write changes, and that results in more problems again. So if we already know what we want to say, let's just stick with that. Our main idea is unnecessary delays. So let's just stick with that as the unnecessary delays. And then we can talk about more traffic jams after that. So let's just stick with what the plan was. No problem, Stan. You're fine. That's what we're here for. Okay, so we only have 25 minutes left, which is fine. It just means we're unlikely to get through the full essay here during the lesson. I have a lesson with one of the students on my course right after this, so I will definitely have to finish up on the hour. So in the next 25 minutes. So if you've written anything, go ahead and share it with me. If not, I'll just push ahead myself just to give you guys an idea of what it should look like. It would be better for you to attempt it yourself, because then I can tell you if you're making any mistakes so that you can learn from it. But let's just see. I'll give it another, let's say, 30 seconds here, and then I'll just push forward if not. Okay, so since unnecessary delays in daily commute can produce more traffic jams, people have to spend much more time in a vehicle. That is to say, they have to withstand the pressure of body odor and noises. I'm not going to go with the body odor and noises because it's kind of coming away from what we had planned to say. So like I was saying there with Stan earlier on, is we want to stick with our plan. If you have a plan and you know that everything in your plan is okay, the ideas are relevant, the development is appropriate, and you have everything you need, then follow that plan. Because what happens then is, well, the reason we wrote a plan is to make sure everything's okay. But then you start saying other stuff. It's like, well, have you checked that? Why are we talking about withstand pressure of body or odor and noises? Well, it's like, well, if there are more cars, well, there's more people in cars. Of course, there would be some people who are now in buses, and that's going to be slower as well. But there would be more people in cars too. So, it would be their own body odor and noises. So, I think people can generally deal with their own better than others, or potentially, I know what you're saying is like if you're in a bus, but that wouldn't necessarily reflect, the full situation. But I'll definitely take that first sentence you've written. Okay, let's take that first sentence. Now, what you're saying is you've moved in your development, you're talking about unnecessary delays can produce more traffic jams, but it's not that the delays are causing traffic jams. It's that the traffic jams are causing delays. So it would be, since there are more cars on the streets during people's daily commutes, people have to spend much more time in a vehicle, or much more time, let's say, on the road. The road which means they have less free time before and after work. Okay, and now we wanted to say that is worse for people's mental health. The knock-on effect of this is that people have worse, or more people have poor mental health due to a lack of time to relax. Yeah, I think that's enough. So how long is that now? That there is, let me see, 70 words right on the button. Okay, so that's our first paragraph done. I'm just going to take that and I'm going to move it down. So we've written our introduction here already. Then we have our first body paragraph about that. And now the second view, which we had already decided what to say, we get to move on to that one. So again, I'm just going to move it up to the top so that you guys can see the question as you are writing it. But that's the next task for us then. So write the second body paragraph. So which can cause nausea and emotional instabilities. Yeah, I think just try to keep it on track a little bit. So I think you're kind of talking about the issues with public transport, and you're saying that those issues are still there. It's just that you're going to be on the bus longer. So, I mean, it's the same problem, just more time. I'd focus more on the time thing. Focus more on the time spent on the road rather than the maybe negative effects of some public transport. Ariel, as there are more cars on the roads, people may experience more traffic jams. when they go to work or travel to different places, especially in the early morning and late afternoon. Fantastic. Very well written. It's what you've said is suitable. All the vocab and grammar is good. Good range of structures, or a good complex structure used appropriately, and good, accurate vocab with appropriate vocab choices. So a very good piece of writing there, Ariel. Okay, so I'll let you guys get on with it. The second body paragraph about the second view, using the ideas on the screen. So don't go off using other ideas. Let's stay completely focused on the plan we've already made. And sorry, now I don't know how to say your name, but let's see what you've written. While some argue that the surge in car ownership represents the most pressing challenge for modern cities, others contend that urban areas are confronted with even more critical issues. Now, it is a good transition where you make it clear that we are going to discuss another problem, but that's a lot of writing. Now, the language is good. So what you've written is good quality in terms of language, and it's good for coherence and cohesion. So you're saying like, okay, we're not talking about that anymore. Now we're going to talk about this. So all of that is really good, but you haven't actually said what we're going to talk about. So when it comes to your task response, you want to have the idea at the start so that the full 70 words in your paragraph, that all of that is developing your idea. Whereas now you have all of this, which does nothing for your task response. It's good for coherence and cohesion. It's good for vocab and grammar, but it hasn't done anything for task response. So what will come next is the idea, and then there'll only be a little bit of development. But we want as much development as possible because that's where the task response score goes from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9. So even though it's very well written, I'm not going to add that to the screen. Mirabas, however, others believe that environmental issues should be prioritized. No, I'm not going to say environmental issues in a kind of general way. I want to say specifically the decrease in green spaces. So environmental issues, and especially when you see the word issues, that's plural. So what that means is you're referring to many issues, but we want to be as specific as possible. So we want to say like, here's one issue that is more significant, not there are many issues that are more significant. Here's just this one that I'm going to talk about is the decrease in green spaces. So again, we want to be as specific as possible, not kind of setting it up so that we give our idea in the next sentence, but giving it in the first, because then we're on track to have as much time as possible and as many words as possible in the development of our main idea. Also, if any of you guys are looking for one-on-one support, I have IELTS courses and I have correction services. So let me just share the link with that. You'll find the link in the video description as well, but I'll just share it in the comments as well. So for any of you looking to work kind of one-on-one with me and, you know, getting more detailed feedback on every issue in your writing, be it vocab, grammar, coherence and cohesion, task response, ideas, whatever it would be, you know, as well as kind of more detailed corrections in terms of what your vocab and grammar mistakes are. So there's the link. You'll also find it in the video description. Or you can just send me an email. It's lar@completetestsuccess.com. Ariel, however, the decreasing in green spaces is a more serious issue, causing sedentary lifestyles and worse health problems because people don't have enough natural places to exercise. Okay. That's definitely a good place to start. I'm going to have to edit the language a little bit, but certainly what we're looking for is we have our main idea and you've even moved on to the development, which doesn't have to be in the first sentence. It could be in the next one. Okay, so let's say the decreasing number. So it's not that the green spaces are decreasing. So the decreasing number of green spaces is a more serious issue, good, causing sedentary lifestyles and worse health problems. I'm not going to get into the worse health problems. I'm just going to go to the sedentary lifestyles first. So let's get that idea out of the way first, and then we'll move on to the result of worse mental and physical health. So I'm just going to take that out for now, causing, maybe resulting in sedentary lifestyles because people do not have enough natural places to exercise and inevitably spend more time at home online instead, something like that. Okay, and then from there we can move on to worse mental and physical health. This leads to worse mental or sedentary lifestyles result in worse mental and physical health for these people, which means it has a worse effect than the increasing number of cars. Okay, so that's that paragraph done. Let me have a quick look there. There's a spelling mistake here. So where am I? Word count, 60 words, a little bit short, but for the sake of our lesson today, we'll leave it off, but ideally you would write about 70. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to have enough time to finish the full essay, but that's what we're looking at. So we have our paraphrase. We've said that we're going to discuss both views, and we said what our view is in the introduction. We had the main idea in the first sentence. So this is to support the first view, and then the development of that. Body paragraph 2, the idea to support the second view and the development of that. And now we would need to do the same thing again. So we would have to say, however, my opinion is that furthermore, I agree that there are more pressing issues than the increasing number of cars because of the inadequate affordable housing in many cities. And then you just continue with what we developed. And of course, we need to write a conclusion. As I said, we're just not going to have time to get through it all there today. But we've got a good way through it. And we've seen, the most important thing, how to plan how to organize the essay. And for the most part, the quality of the writing has been very, very good today in terms of the vocab and the grammar that you guys in the writing that you've shared with me. So really, really strong in terms of your work. So insufficient green spaces go hand in hand with an increase in indoor activities and limited space to move around. It means that less physical activity can lead to serious health issues such as obesity. Fantastic. Yep, that's very good. I think it might go a little bit off what we had planned in the essay plan, what we decided to say already. But I mean, what you're saying is really, 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 really good. Be careful with your punctuation. You want to start with capital letter there. You want a comma there before such as and a full stop after obesity. So punctuation mistakes, but everything else is really strong. Mirabas, you're very welcome. Okay, guys, so we'll leave it there for today. My schedule is kind of moving around a bit at the moment. So I used to always have the live streams on Tuesdays, but since the clock changed and I have other work going on, it's kind of moving around. So it's like Tuesday, last week was Wednesday, Thursday this week, and I'm not really sure where which day of the week it will be next week, but it will be around the same time of day. So feel free to join in there. As I said, if you want one-on-one support, reach out and I'll be able to help you there. And yeah, that's it for today. Good work, everybody. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.